Okay, hello everyone. Can you hear me? Great, thank you. So, thank you. So I'm not sure if you've been able to read the next assignment. It just appeared on the Canvas website. I just placed it there. Um, Let me see. Okay, can you see the syllabus? I mean the next brief on my screen. Okay. I keep asking because this Zoom meeting system, sometimes it doesn't just show your screen. You can pick a window to share. So if I move around, sometimes it won't pick up the window that I'm in because I have to activate it. But okay, but it's working so far. So for the next assignment, what we're going to do is basically create a video. The assignment is called Cite as Video, and you will be able to sort of create a analysis of your site, sites that you've studied before earlier in the previous project, and you're going to animate this and add more information. I hope more information than was found on your previous assignments. And perhaps new information. And I think you can begin to speculate on some type of organizational system for what your project will be in the future. So the requirement is a 1 to 2 minute video, and you will upload that to Canvas. Here is the way that the grading will sort of break down. And here's the schedule. So this is being issued today. We're having a tutorial. Storyboards will be required by next class in a draft of something by Friday. Monday we'll have another draft due, and this time with sound. And next Wednesday the final video will be due. And I know you guys will be able to do it because I've done this before in the same amount of time, and even students that had never done any type of editing managed to create something pretty cool. So the first part, a storyboard. What is a storyboard? So you may have seen this in cartoons or movies, but a storyboard is sort of a breakdown of things that are going to occur in an animation or a movie or something. So it sets up the scene with the important things. First, in this case, I don't know, for this movie, it says first there's the man, he's on his phone, he does something, and I don't know what this is. This is just from Google, but you can look up. It's almost like a cartoon, but in your case, it'll be diagrams of your plans and what you want them to do, zoom in, zoom out, in, fade out, lines come across, and different things like that. So for the next class period, I would like for everyone to have a series of these documenting everything that they plan to do or are trying to do. To bring this more back into what you will be doing, these are some videos. I'm going to show you some videos that my previous class, my previous students created, and I'll send you a link with these on YouTube so that you can scroll through it a little bit quicker. But this student is Brian Hernandez, and I think I need to share this so that you see it. Let's see. can you see a media player on the window in your screen? Or no? Okay. Again, so many windows, I don't know what it picks up sometimes. But so this is a animation by Brian Hernandez, and his site is in Fort Worth. And he also, if you listen to it, he incorporated sound. And when you create your videos, I'd like for you to incorporate sound as well. But I don't mean, you know, I don't mean to put your favorite song, you know, Taylor Swift or whatever techno song you're into at the moment. It should be more about the video, and the sound should be, I would say, more ephemeral, to sort of show mood, but not something that is going to be distracting to the viewer. So I'll stop talking and we'll play this video here. Okay, did everyone see that video? It may have been a bit glitchy, but again, I'll share that with you. And then I want to show you another one that was very good as well. This one is by Victoria Wong. And let's play it. So those are some examples of animations that were successful in the previous class. And again, some of the music wasn't synced with what you were watching, but when you see the YouTube video, you'll be able to better hear them and see how it's synced. So let's start with the hardest way to do this, and then we will go to the simplest way. So if you don't have Adobe Premiere or After Effects, you will have to do this in a computer lab or in a computer lab, or download the software and create the video that way. You can also create animations through Photoshop, which I'll show you, and we'll do it in PowerPoint as well, but we'll do those at the end. So first, I'm just going to type in Premiere. I've already downloaded this, Adobe Premiere Pro. Okay. Okay, so this is a window that you will arrive at, and yours may look differently depending on the year that or the version that you have. But I'm going to go ahead and select New Project, and at this point, it's going to ask you where you want to save your project. So you can go to the Browse folder, and then select somewhere that you want to create. I'm going to say sure. We'll get that folder, and we'll just call it Test Animation Adobe Premiere Pro. Okay. Well, that's a folder, so let's go. I'm just basically creating a folder to save this stuff in. And then you should give it a title. So I'm going to type Test Animation Adobe Premiere Pro. Okay, and that's basically just creating a new project. And it really is pretty simple. All these windows may look complicated, but it really is a pretty simple software approach. If you know how to use Photoshop, I would say you pretty much can work this to your advantage. So the next thing I want to do is go to File, New, Sequence, and here it's going to ask you for a template of what you want to use, what your screen ratio and your frame rate and all that stuff. So I'm just going to use this one that I have selected here, DV, NTSC, and then widescreen 48. I want my movie to be in widescreen. So I'll say OK to that. And some things have appeared here. I'll go briefly into the different windows. So I guess the easiest one to look at is this timeline here. So this icon that I'm selecting with this blue line, this is basically where in time we are. So if our video is going to be a minute long, then it would stop somewhere around there, a minute long. And you can see it here as well. I can hold my mouse over the number, and I can also scroll that way. I'm just holding it down and scrolling left and right. See that? And if I go to this side here, you see I have V1, V2, V3, and these are set up like layers. So just like in Photoshop, you can create as many layers as you want. I'm sure there's a limit, but yeah, I never get to too many. And whatever is on top is what is going to be shown, just like in Photoshop. If you have layers stacked up, let me hide this for a second. If you have layers in Photoshop, whatever you have, okay, something is going on here because I was creating an animation. But whatever is on top is usually what you're going to see, correct? Okay, and then you also have different audio channels. Those are visual channels, and these are audio channels. So if you bring in a footage, imported footage, you'll see a video channel, content, and audio channel. And we'll get into that a little bit later. And then, okay, that'll be good for now. And wherever this is, we don't have an image shown here yet, but wherever this timeline overlaps the content, it'll appear on this screen here. And whatever we import, which we'll do in a second, it'll show up in this window here. So let's import just an image file. I'm just going to find a random image. We'll just do a Google image. Okay. And our site for some of you is here, so we'll just focus on that side. Just kind of, okay, so that's Dallas. I'm just going to grab a snippet of this map here. I'm going to save this to my folder here. Maybe I'll create a links folder. Sure. Okay. All right. Now let's go back to Premiere, and we're going to select File, Import, and I'll go to my links folder and I'll select that Google House Google image. Open. And as I mentioned before, now it appears here in this window where the images are linked. So now what I'm going to do is to get it into my timeline here, my sequence, I'm just going to grab that image and bring it over. And there you see it. I'm going to move this timeline to the left. And as soon as I cross it, the image should appear, as you can see there. See the image appears. Now, since we're going to move back and forth in time and different amounts of time that we want things to be shown, sometimes you want to get into split seconds, and other times you want to see something over, I don't know, a few minutes. So there's a cool scroll bar down here, which basically sort of zooms in on time. So what I'm doing here is you see these numbers are getting larger. And so I can really get into the seconds and even half seconds and really sort of highlight the exact moment that I want to have this, where I want to see where this timeline is. So if you notice what I just did there, let's see, 100%. I scroll in and out. 75%. If I scroll over the content, you'll see that it's showing on my program sequence. And if I just pass it, it goes black because there's nothing there. Now let's say I want to make this sequence last 4 seconds. I'll just take my scroll bar here to 4 seconds where it says 4. And I can do one of two things. I could shrink my content to meet 4 seconds, or I can use sort of cut the length of the content. So I'm going to hit C for cut, and it brings up this razor blade, and I'm going to place it over that time where I want to cut, right there. And now, so that divided it into 2 sections, and I can select that one and hit delete. So now my timeline, or my length for this image is 4 seconds. Okay. Any questions so far? Okay, that's pretty easy. Oh, let's see. I think someone typed something. Oh, no, okay. So let's bring in, well, let's do something with this image here. So the snippet that I took was square, correct? And this image here is it's sort of filling in the widescreen ratio that we selected. And what if I want to have that square show up here in the center? In other words, I want to scale the image down or I want to scale the image up. You can do that by, oops, let's go to effects. That's not what I want to do. Panel. Okay, let's go to Window, Workspace. Let's say reset to no. Okay, that one was good. So I'm just setting my windows to be what I want them to look like. So sure, I went to Window, Workspaces, Editing. So let's say I want to change the shape of this. If I select my content and then go over to this window here and click on Effects Controls, which is this tab, I have a lot of effects controls. So scale is one of them, where right now it came in at 100%, whatever that means. But if I click on it and go left or right, I can make the scale bigger or smaller. Okay, so that's how I can control the scale of that image. Let's say I wanted it to be that, then I could do that. Again, position moves it left or right. So now the one above scale is positioned. If I hold my mouse and go left or right, it'll position it in a certain location, or up and down as well. And if I wanted to, I could also rotate this. So that might be useful instead of trying to edit stuff in Photoshop, rotating or things, and then saving it as a JPEG and bringing it in, you can bring it here. Let me undo what I just did and get it back to that large scale, which I think was that one. Okay. And another thing you can do is lower the opacity. So you see here, right, it says opacity. I can go left, and it's making it 100% opaque, or 0% opaque, so transparent, or 100% opaque, which is not transparent. And I can also have different blend modes, like in Photoshop, blend, multiply, normal, different things occurring like that. Okay. So you see that I for some reason, no, let's not do that yet. We'll come back to that in a second. Let's bring in another image so that you see what I was talking about. So now I'm just going to bring this image, and I'm going to change this back to map format, just for our purposes, and I'll create a new snippet. Save. And now I'm going to bring in another image. So I'll go to File, Import, Talos Google 2, Open, and now you see that it appears there. And now I'm going to place that Dallas Google 2 image on top of this one here. Okay, so again, whatever's on top, whatever's the highest is what's going to be visible. Just like if you're looking at a stack of papers, whatever's on top, that's what's visible. So let me zoom in here so you can see the moment of transition. So here's my timeline. As soon as I reach that new image on top, the bottom one disappears. See that? So what if I wanted to fade, from this image into this image? And let's say they were sort of placed in the same location. I don't know what the scale is, but maybe that's, no, maybe a little bit lower. Your drawings would be at the same scale, so you wouldn't have this issue of trying to align them. But oops. More or less, I'm just trying to get it to match. One thing to remember is to always save your project, because some of these actions are pretty heavy and they may crash your computer or crash the software and lose your information. So remember to always save. Another thing that you can do while you're in this screen is to watch what it's going to look like, sort of a preview of the final version. So I'm going to bring my timeline to 0, and I'm going to hit play here. And it's basically playing a preview of that. To get a good preview, you often have to what they call render the view, and that will make it play smoother on your computer. And to do that, you just hit enter, the enter key. It used to be that you hit the enter key and then they would render the image. Okay, let's try it again. Render in. See, it's saying render fix into out. Well, I guess we haven't really done anything that needs rendering, so that function is not available. But we're going to do something now that will make that necessary. So again, whatever's on top is what's visible, and what I want to do is just gently fade it into this instead of being so abrupt. So I'm going to click on this image here. I'm going to go to Effect Controls. Let me zoom in right to where that transition. Let's say it occurs at 2 seconds. So I'm going to bring this over here. I'm going to zoom in. You see that I'm zooming in there. And let's over how many seconds I want that to sort of fade. So I don't know, 1, 2, 3, maybe over 1 second I can fade in. And these are the sort of timings that you guys will have to work out. So between 2 seconds and 3 seconds, this is going to fade from this to totally this image. So what I'm going to do is basically make this top one totally transparent at this point, half transparent at this location, halfway through, and not transparent at all at 3 seconds. So I'm going to click on this image, go to Effect Controls. Again, I'm going to bring my timeline to 2 seconds there. And I'm going to select this opacity sort of toggle. And it was already selected, but you see how it's like a little stopwatch or like a little, yeah, that's basically what it is. So what I'm doing is setting keyframes. So I'm going to set a keyframe there, and I'm going to scroll to 3 seconds, and I'm going to hit that, I'm going to hit this keyframe button here. So here's like a mini timeline here in the center, and that little diamond is a keyframe, and this is another keyframe. And what the keyframes do are establish something at a certain period of time. So what I'm going to do is go to the beginning, and you see that this little icon here, it turns blue. And I'm going to say, at 2 seconds, I want my opacity to be 0, like that. I just scrolled all the way to 0. And then if I scroll to the right, and I get to that other keyframe, you can use these little arrows to jump between keyframes. I'm going to say, I want my opacity for this top image to be 100%. So you saw the transition there very well. It goes from 0 to totally transparent to totally opaque. So now if we play that whole thing out, hit play, then you see that smooth transition between images. Cool, huh? Another thing that we could do is add movement to this image. So not only, let's do another image. Google, let's go. Time to jump to Internet Explorer. Jeez. Exactly, Google. I guess I typed too fast. No, I don't know what it is. Okay, we'll just use some other image on my computer. So I'm gonna go to File, Import. I have, let's say this old map of Dallas. So there it is, and I'm gonna place it on my third channel. I'll place it, I don't know, here. So if I zoom in, or if I move the timeline, it's gonna fade in. And now there's that old map of Dallas there. You can also, in this window, if you want, we want to, we'll keep it cold. I messed up my workspaces again. Let's go back to my regular workspaces. Okay. I was going to show you something else, but I'm not going to do that. So let's say for this map, I want it to sort of come from the bottom of the screen and stop there. First of all, I want to scale it up a little bit just so that I think we'd have to scale it up a lot to get it to the same scale as that, but we'll just do that. So sometimes you have to work backwards. So let's say at section 4, this is where I want this image to land. Okay, so I'll go to my effect controls here, and I'm going to select the toggle for position, and I'm going to click there to select to create a keyframe. And then I'm going to scroll all the way to the beginning of that location of that content, and I'm going to click this button to add another keyframe. So I know that at this point, I don't want the image to be in the frame at all. So I'm going to move it down. Move it down so that it's off the image there. So in 1 second, that image, that map of Dallas is going to scroll to the top. And if I hit play, bing, and as you can see, that's pretty fast. So we may have to do it over a longer period of time because that's like way too fast. So I'm going to click on that image, and you can actually move the keyframes like this. So maybe let's go to 6 seconds. And that transitional well, I have to move this one down just a tad. All right. Okay. So over 6 seconds, that map is going to appear. If I hit play, fade in, and then we'll have a map scroll over. And those are the very, very simple commands. What else could we do? Let's say you bring in a lot of images. Okay, I'm gonna, well, I don't want to do it that way. Let's say you bring in a lot of images, you know, and you're not gonna have them overlap or anything. You're just gonna have them be sequential like that. Right now, this is not an issue because it's only 3 images, but if you bring in 50 images or 50 frames, you know, moving each one of them over to end to end can be annoying. So if you right click in the space between two content files and select ripple delete, it'll sort of bring them automatically together. That's a tool that I discovered way late after I had done a million videos and getting tired of moving these things over, but that's how it goes sometimes. So, okay, let's do that. All right, so we have remnants of something there. And if you wanted to import, if you wanted to create more layers for some reason, okay, there's a question. Does that remove all gaps on all layers? No, but I think you have to be careful because I'm just going to ripple delete it here. Oh, I guess it does. Look at that. Good catch, Logan. I always use it on the track itself. I never do it over all the images, over all the tracks, because I don't know. I just like to control this a little bit, a little more. I feel like I might lose something if I accidentally deleted all the layers. That was a good question. The other thing I was going to say, oh, let's say you want to add more tracks. You just right click on this location here and select add track. And it's going to ask you, where do you want this track to occur? And you can tell after video 1, 2, 3, before, so forth. Okay. And it looks like you can also right click and delete a track if you want. Okay, what is another thing that would be useful? There are a lot of effects which you could go, I mean, you could spend days doing this kind of stuff, but I don't want to show you those because they're not, I mean, they're just, can be really tricky. So this is a very simple, just the very basics of this. And if you want to look into how to use effects, you can, but just be weary that you can get pretty cheesy effects. Like a wipe or something that looks like from an infomercial or something. I just don't want to get into them because they're kind of distracting. But there are a lot of other things that you could do to these images, to the sequence of these things. So again, if you want to import a audio file, you would do the same thing, file, import, and you can import a sound. I know there are, something like license-free audio files. Okay, of course, Google's not going to help me today. But you can find things that are royalty-free. That's what I was looking for. And just be careful. So, choose something that looks reasonable. Something that looks like it's not going to give you a virus. If you wanted to do that. But one thing that I like to do is, sort of select a song that I like, and then stretch it out using the time icon. By changing the speed duration, you can change the length of the song. And so it just makes it ephemeral. You just hear this, it can be like any song you like. If you stretch it out and distort it, it sounds really interesting, really moody, and really atmospheric is a good way of putting that. If you guys listen to Radiolab, they have a great Radiolab. It's a podcast that comes on NPR, but you can also listen to it standalone. They have this great episode about time and how time can affect a lot of things, but they start with a this performance that occurred at some point where they stretched out Beethoven's Fifth Symphony to last over the course of a day. And so people would just go into this gallery and you would just hear this stretched out, beautiful sound. And I mean, it was really quite something. So here's a clip of that. I don't know if we'll be able to hear what that sounds like.
Grammarly does more than catch errors.
Okay, after this ad, let's see what it sounds like.
All right, ready?
Okay, that's the opposite of what I think they were speeding it up, but you get the point. So if there's a song you like, I don't know, try stretching it out. And Brian's example that we saw earlier was that same thing, where the sound is kind of distorted and should really be about the animation, and the sound is secondary in that case. So once you've created your animation, how do you get it out of here? How do you export it to something usable? Okay, I'm going to save. I'm going to go to File, Export, Media. And in this place, you have to be very careful in this window because you can get files that are quite large, like a gig or 2 gigs big, really easily if you're not careful. So one reliable way of compressing your image file is to select H.264 as your format. And that's going to create an MP4 file. So it was already selected in that case. And here where it says output name, I'm going to select, it's giving it its own name, sequence 1, which is the name of our sequence, which we didn't label. We didn't give it a sequence name, but we can call it our own. So if you just click on it, we'll see, let's see, test 1. Okay, that's good. We don't have any audio, so I would uncheck that export audio. It may reduce the size of the file, maybe not, probably not. And there are different settings here. So let's see here. Just scroll down. You can play sometimes with these bitrate settings, and it will decrease the size of your file. Fortunately, ours, if you read it down here at the bottom, it says your file size will be 9 megabytes. So that's not big at all. It's pretty good. So I'm going to hit export. Here you can see the timeline, and it gives you a preview of what it's going to look like. So let's just hit export, and it's going to give you a little tweet at the end, which, let's go back to that folder. So here it is. Here's the AP test. It's an MP4 file. And there is an animation that we just created in like 5 seconds. Actually, 40 seconds, 40 minutes. But the images were quite low quality, the ones that I brought in. So the quality is kind of bad, but it's also compressed. Let's try another format to export this as. We'll go to File, Export, Media. And instead of H.264, let's choose something else. Let's just say QuickTime. I'm going to name this APP Quick. I'll call it APP Quick. Save. And this one is really going to be pretty big, I'm assuming, but let's just see what happens. This is going to save it as a .mov file. Export. And now this one is 135 megabytes. And that one usually only likes to be played in a QuickTime window. Oh, and it gave me an error. Okay, it didn't, it's not, I wonder if that's because the file is too big or what's going on. But when I said in class the other day that the toughest part would be exporting, this is what I'm talking about. I may have unclicked something. File, export, media. No, that's there. That was good. I'm going to change the codec, which is the compressor, to something else. I'll select this one here right above it, see what happens. I'm going to replace that one. Yes, I want to replace it. Now it's 57 megabytes. Let's see here. Okay, I may have an old QuickTime version, so it's not letting me play. But either way, the QuickTime file is turning out to be way larger. So let's try another one just for kicks. Another format, export. And this time let's try AVI, which is the Windows. FTP. Let's see what that does. That one, 28 megabytes. And there you see, that one's okay. And I think the quality is a tad better just because it's bigger compared to 9 megabytes of the MOV file. So those are some the basic commands there for Premiere. The keyframes are important when you're trying to overlay things and move and scale and remember. So for opacity, remember you have to select the image, and then the effects that you've applied to it will appear there. Now let me save this, and let's do one more thing if it works out. So let's say I want to add text to this project. I'm going to create a new track. Sure. After video 3. And I can select this type tool here. I want to make sure I'm on that level. Type tool, and I'm just going to create a window like in Photoshop. And I'm going to type in downtown Dallas. And as you see there, when I created that type, another window appeared, and it's giving me all sorts of options. You know, what kind of font do I want? What scale should this thing be? Left justified, right justified, so forth. And that becomes another layer that I can you know, do something with. So let's say, what does this last thing look like? Dallas. Let's say I want to bring this in. Let's say I want to, let's do this. I'm going to move these over to the right. I just selected all of them. And this is going to say Dallas. And it's going to start like this, the project will. And then I'm going to fade it to nothing, and then the images are going to appear. So in order to do that, I'll click on that image. I'll click on this opacity keyframe, and I'll make that 100, or you know, fully that. And then when I get to 3 seconds, which is right there, I'm going to add another keyframe, and I'm going to make this completely disappear. So if I play the overall action, maybe it even fits. I like that better. So let's do this. Click on that image. Okay, I want I'm going to take this to 3 seconds. I'm going to make this smaller. Okay, and at 3 seconds, I want this to be at 0. And at 1 second, I want this to be gone as well. So right around maybe at third of the way. 1 second. I want this to be fully opaque. So what you see it's going to do is going to be, at the beginning, it's going to be transparent, fully visible, and then transparent again, and then these images will appear. So let's see what that looks like. So after, we just spent a few seconds doing all these things, but you can have an appreciation for all the editing that you see occur on movies and commercials and everything, because we're almost splitting hairs. We're splitting seconds with what we are doing, and it's a lot of it. You just have to play it and see how the timing works out. Sometimes you play something, and I'm thinking, oh, okay, the last section was too long, so I'm going to make it shorter, and just bring that a little bit better. So that felt a little better. Is there a way to copy paste effects with the same keyframes to other layers? That's a good question. There may be a way. I'm sure there has to be a way. I understand your question. Let's say you had 3 images of the same thing, 3 diagrams, and they're each showing something different, and you wanted to sort of fade into each one, or fade in and fade out, and you want the same amount of time to occur between each one. Maybe that's something, Keon, are you familiar with that? If you can copy and paste the effects from one thing to the next. Let's see. I've never thought of doing that. Well, you see what I did there? I right-clicked on an image and I select copy. And I right-clicked on another image and selected paste attributes. So I don't know if that's going to do it, but that would be one way. Let's see what happens. Look at that. Motion opacity. Who knows? I don't know. That's a good exercise to go through to see if that'll do that. I think with what we just did, it probably will. You can by individually clicking the effects from the effects panel. Okay, Keon, you might have to show us that. Well, there it is. Copy. And I'm guessing you would be able to paste it also. Here, there's some cool commands here, but we won't get into those. Auto Bezier. Those are basically like, and right now we have linear selected. Those are basically, let's think about it this way. So right, check. Is there a limit to the number of editing guides? I'm not, you mean the keyframes, Oscar? Oscar is asking, is there a limit to the number of editing guides? Yes, where the images are. I think, I'm not sure if you're referring to the tracks. I think you can have as many tracks as you want. You're saying guide, so I keep thinking of this little blue line, but I don't think that's what you're referring to. And then the keyframes, you can have as many as fit. Yes, where the images are located. Yeah, you can have several tracks. I don't know if there's a limit. There's a limit in Photoshop to the number of layers, so I imagine there would be a limit in this, but I imagine that would be like in the thousands or something. So I don't think you would need to worry about that in this case. But another thing to do is just to be smart, so let's say let's say I want to put, an image, and it's not on top of any of the other ones. I could put it on its own track, but if it's not overlapping anything, I could put it even on the first track because it'll be, it's not affecting anything else. So I wouldn't need to add another track. I would just be careful of adding like 50 tracks and sort of it being difficult to scroll back and forth. But yeah, you just have to be smart with your layers, like in Photoshop. Let's see. Okay, we spent like an hour on Premiere, which is fine. We'll spend another 30 minutes or so on After Effects, and then the other two. That'll be very quick. There's one more thing. Oh, I was showing you what those movement controls meant. So in this case, you have this. And if I right click on these, it says linear. So what's happening is we have our timeline, and we created sort of 3 diamonds, right? I can't draw a diamond. Let me draw it again. We created a keyframe there, keyframe there, and keyframe there. And this is like 3 seconds, and this is 4 seconds. And what's occurring is that, let's say this is the image. The image is going in a linear fashion from 100% transparent to 100% opaque, and then 100% opaque, transparent. Does that make sense? It's a linear progression. Those Bezier tools, for some reason, they can be more pleasing to the eye, and it's doing it something like this. So it's not as abrupt as a linear line, but it's sort of mathematical. It starts off slower and it gains speed. It sort of slows down and then it speeds up again in that fashion. So those are just different tricks you can use. I don't know what that was. I heard a sound in the background. And everyone is muted. It must have been me. Okay. So let's stop with that because this is we're getting into the weeds. But those are the basic things that you're going to need to practice with. After Effects. It's very similar. I use After Effects or Premiere in different ways. And I've heard that Premiere is better for editing sound and After Effects is more visual editing, but you can get basically the same things from both softwares. Okay. One thing I should mention that would help you export is if you have the Adobe Creative Cloud and you can download all these things, make sure you download Media Encoder. This will help you compress your files when you're creating files and when you're exporting. And also it has a whole bunch of settings that are new where you can tell it, okay, I want to export this to a Facebook video quality, or I want to export this to YouTube, or I want to export this for whatever version iPhone, and it'll have all the templates prepared for you to just click on it, and it'll export it perfectly encoded for that software or phone or device. And I think I have it downloaded, so I'm going to use that in a few minutes. So After Effects, Adobe After Effects, I'm going to select New Composition. Same kind of thing. Give it a name. Here you can tell it the aspect ratio that you want it to be. And you can also start to tell it, how many seconds you want it to be at this location. You can change it later, but for now we're going to
For now, we're going to leave it like that. And here's another interesting option here: frame rate. And so right now, for some reason, it's at 11.583. The frame rate has to do with sort of, if you think of like animations or cartoons that are made of still images that that are changed very quickly in sequence, and they give the appearance of motion. That's what movies are. Movies on film are. That's how that functions, or cartoons or animations that you've seen. They're basically a series of still images that are in rapid succession, and gives the appearance of movement. So you'll see different numbers here. 29.97 and 30 seconds. That is roughly the amount of frames per second that a human will start to perceive them being as motion. So if it's less than that, 8, 12, down here in the 20s, low 20s, the animation or video will seem choppy. It will be like stop motion, right? And now movies, HD movies that we see in a movie theater, they film them at 60 frames per second, or I think even higher. And so that's why sometimes those things look hyper realistic. They look even more real than actual life. So for us, I'd like to go to 30 frames per second. And we can just start with that one. You can also change your aspect ratio if you want it to be, I don't know, 1080, whatever you want it to be. I think, what was it at? It was at, you can tell it here. Oh, that's something else. But let's say it's there, 1920. Okay, 1920 pixels wide and 1080 pixels tall. So we'll hit OK. And you have sort of the same things that we just saw in After and Premiere. You have your timeline here. Now we have our sources. Our links are going to appear in this window. And here we have our monitor, or what we're going to be composing. So let's import some of those links that we had earlier. Sure, that one. And we're going to drag that here. Okay, and I brought it in, and you see the track there, but look how tiny it is. So we're going to zoom in here with this scroll bar. And this thing is just super tiny. So what we're going to do is right click on it. This is the file that I just grabbed. And I'm going to select time stretch. I don't know. Let's give this 1000 stretch factor. So there's the image. And it's still really, 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 really small. Okay, so that's even bigger now. And here, basically, what I have to do is tell it how many seconds long I want it to be. So this is, let's say 10 seconds. Did I do it? I know what happens here. So let's delete this and start over again. We'll go to File. Sorry, we'll go to Composition, Composition Settings, and Advanced 3D Render. No, sorry, this is not where I want to go. Edit, Preferences, Media. Let's see. Import.
there is a option here to tell it what file, what length the image will be when it's imported. Still footage, here it is. I want this to be 20 seconds. Let's see if that changes anything. No, I didn't. I think it was there, but let's check again. Oh, I think it's because it was already imported. So let me delete that. Preferences, import. Okay, I want it to be 10 seconds. Okay, now I'm going to import that file. This thing is making it look bad. So there it's a little bit longer, but it's not. When I change this to another factor, it doesn't like it. It only lets you go that much. Okay, we'll have to come back to why that's doing that. Unless Keon, you see something that I'm missing. Composition settings. See what that does. Well, if we can't get the length right, then we're not going to be able to do our job properly. So I may have to come back to this one, but what I wanted to show you is, let's bring in some other files. This one. Okay, I imported the same one. Something else is going on here. File, import file. And we don't want this option selected, sequence, import JPEG sequence. I just want to select that one image. So make sure that this importer JPEG sequence is unchecked. There we go. That's what the problem was. Okay. So file, import. And why this button exists is if you're creating an animation, if you're creating an animation with like 1,000 images that are all in sequence with each other, you don't want to select all of them and miss picking up something. So you can just select the first image, select import sequence, and it'll select all the images. But I don't want that. I just want to bring one image, and that's what you guys will be bringing, because you just will have, you know, a dozen so diagrams or around that number. So I'm going to import that. Now this will make sense.
if I change the preferences, then we'll import, and let's say I want it to be 5 seconds. Whoops, that was in minutes. Let's do that again. Edit, preferences, import. That's the minutes, of course. This is 5 seconds. And if we zoom in, come on. Let's go. And as you can see, you can also stretch this out pretty easily like that. There's 30 seconds. And there's 5 seconds, which is minuscule. If I hit spacebar to play the animation, there's the 5 seconds of that image. Again, you see how this image is kind of not the size of the page of the window. You can select that content and you can grab these icons and move it to the scale you want. If you just grab a corner and move it around, it's sort of scaling it without constraint. But if you hold Shift, it'll scale it up and down in the same proportion. And then, instead of having the effects up there like we did in Premiere, you click on the image and then hit this little arrow here, and then hit this arrow again, transform. You have sort of the similar options that we had in After Effects, right? So we bring this to the beginning, select that image, and we'll select, okay, so position. So we'll hit this little tool there. It creates a keyframe. And we'll move this all the way to 5 seconds around there. And we'll hit another keyframe. This time we'll hit the keyframe here. And we want it to fade in from black. So at this point, it's going to be 100% visible. And at this point, I'm sorry, we're talking about position here. So what I want it to do is move out of the image. Okay. Come on. There. Okay. Whoops. At this location, I want it to be down there. So let's see what happens. So I hit play. It's going to do the same thing in terms of motion. Okay, I'm going to delete these icons here. Okay, and of course I left it. And move it out of the image of the window. What I was trying to do was this opacity one. So at this point, the image will be 0. Let me get to 5 seconds. This will be totally opaque. And now we can do the same thing. And play, and it fades in from 0 to dark to visible. You also have other tools. Let's look for the. I think if you just type in T. No. Text. Okay, there it is. So I right-click on it and select the text, and I'll type in Dallas. And now it's its own layer, as you can see there. And if I want to transform it again, if I want to change the scale of this thing, if I want to change the position, opacity, those are options that I can do, again, using these toggles. All right. And one more thing that I think is kind of nice is the shape command. So let me stretch this out even more just so we have more time to play with. So it's going to fade in from nothing to the image. And I'm going to right click here on this window here, select new and select shape layer. So in this shape layer, I want to create, move my command here. You can create different shapes, which, you know, I don't know, some object like that. You can also you know, you can change its opacity just like in Photoshop. Let me see here. You know, if you wanted to highlight something, you can do that. You could also draw a line. Let me draw a line here, pen. Creating a whole bunch of shapes. Let me undo that one. Okay. I didn't like my 2 points. It wants me to draw a line. And that line, you can give it like that line. Where did it go? 1 second. Let me see here. Shape layer. Coming. It's not liking that shape that I'm creating. That's a line. But I'm determined to find out what is going on. Let's see here. Pen tool. Stroke. Oh, what's going on? I didn't have the timeline selected. So here's this. Okay. For some reason, I can't get these lines to show up on this. There must be something I'm missing. Okay, there it is. So just like in we saw in Illustrator the other day, we can create lines, and again we can move these lines with effects. We can fade them in and out. Can you import PDF? I don't think so, but that should be easy to change if you import PDF. So, but if you have a PDF, you can just easily. Let's see. Let's look at that. Oh, look at that. It did let you do it. So there you go. is allowed. Okay, now this one, as you can see, was a bit trickier, and but there are some benefits to it. You may experiment with each one. But how do we export this file now? So we can go to File, Export, and there you have two options. Add to render queue, which is sort of the in-house, the in-program rendering software. And here are the different settings. So you go to File, Render Queue, and it takes you to this tab. The Auto tab is back here. This is the render queue. Again, you can tell it output, where you want it to go and name it, the render settings, and the output module. And this is the place where I would change this to, let's say, QuickTime. Then I would go to format options and change this to something that I'd like to use. Let's see here, other options, Wave, AVI. But I don't really like those options. They're kind of limited. But you have the option to export from here. What I would recommend, and is what I was recommending earlier. I'm just going to delete this. What I would recommend that I was doing earlier is to go use the render media encoder, file, export, Adobe Media Encoder. So it's going to open the other software. And I think it opened, taking a few minutes. There it is. And it has our project here. We didn't give it a name, so it's saying, you know, it gave it its own name. But what I can do here, oh, okay, that was an old one. This is today's. So here I can tell it what I want to export it as, and here H264 shows up. And then I can tell it where I want it to go. Again, this is why it's important to create your folders where you want things to occur. Okay. And then you hit this little play button, and it'll start to render it. It shouldn't take too long because it's not that big of a file. To receive. Saying it may take a long time, and it may be because the file is so big. Actually, I know what's going on. Let's stop that. Yes, I want to quit. So unlike Photoshop, this has a time amount that's sort of preset at the beginning, and I failed to mention that. There's the bar here at the top, and this timeline is sort of more than 25 minutes. So what we want to do is shrink that down to what our window is, which I think is, you know, it could be something like that. And that's the amount of time that'll get exported. So let's try that again. File, export, Adobe Media Encoder queue. It's going to bring it up in that project. Okay, let's give it a few seconds. Okay, this is the one that I just did that I'm going to remove. And this is the one that I just sent now. And again, I want to put it in my folder that I created for this.
I'll hit play, and now it shouldn't take 30 minutes or 40 minutes, what it was saying earlier. Let's see. Okay. Yes, this is going a lot faster. Cool. Go back to that folder. Here it's 26 megabytes, which is pretty big, but we didn't do any motion really to this thing, so it's just exporting that. But you saw basically how to use After Effects. That's pretty a little, maybe in some ways more straightforward, but in other ways, as you can see, it can get a little bit trickier. Okay, so now I'm going to close this one. Don't save. And I'm going to open Photoshop. And I'm going to create a new file. And this is a really simple way of creating an animation. So I'm giving it just a new file, 16 inches by 9 inches. Let's do 72 resolution for us right now. You may want to do 300 or something later. But let's open some new other images that we can bring in. And that one. And we're going to place both of these images that we just brought in on that file, on that blank file that we just created. So I'll go to that one. Okay, it's there on that layer. And I'll do this one, duplicate, same thing. All right, so now the images are there, one on top of the other one. Let's bring in one more. This is just another random image. This image is quite large, so we have 3 images: the background, and then these two maps, and then this image of the facade. So now what we're going to do is go to Window, Timeline, and this timeline appears on the bottom, kind of like what we've been seeing earlier. And let's create, what does it say? Create video timeline. Sure, there you go. Now this should look familiar to you based on what we were just doing. And you see what it did was create different layers and sort of length of time for each image. So if we do this, the only thing is that you're not getting a preview window, but you can sort of see here. You can tell it how long you want this thing to be. Should be able to. Although this is really nothing. This is 30 frames, and remember we were saying 30 frames per second is sort of standard, but I just created this loop here for this sequence. So first it'll show that back one, and then that next one, and then this top one. Now let's export this. Export as, no, I don't want to do that. I want to say file, render, export, render video. Okay. All right. I'm going to give this Photoshop. Select folder. Let's see what it creates. We hit render.
All right, let's see what we did wrong. Not showing up here. I just did this earlier. File export under video. Just try this again. I did this right before we started. What did I do to that file? Video is being taped. Layers are turned off. That might be accurate actually. Let's do it that way. File, export, render video. Yes, please. Well, that was the answer. The layers were turned off, so it wasn't capturing anything. Thank you, whoever said that. Oscar. Now this is sort of a new way of doing it. I was used to doing it in this fashion. You see how I click that little icon down there? And what you would do here is tell it how many seconds you wanted it to play. Maybe 2 seconds is too long. 1 second. And it's going through all the layers. Another thing that you could do, let's do 5 seconds. And here is a tween option, which basically adds a transition between layers. So I just told it to tween between all these layers. And let's change this to 1. Let's see what that looks like. So it's sort of slowly fading from one image to the next. I don't like that, the way that tweens. So let me do another try. Okay, do it again. Select the layers. See what that looks like. Huh. Okay. Well, you're going to have to experiment with that tweening command. And that transitions between images. But as you saw earlier, you can also just export, image after image in a sequence like this. That's super easy. Okay, now the simplest way is with PowerPoint to create something akin to animation. So I could just see this also taking forever, but you could achieve the same, the same kind of thing. So I'm going to have a file there, insert picture. Okay, here's the image of Dallas. I'm going to duplicate that, close this thing here. Actually, I'm going to delete this and import another image. This one. And I could say, let me copy this. Okay, and I'm going to paste it here. And I'm going to duplicate this a couple times. And what I'm going to do is, at this point, I'm going to change the transparency on this thing. I don't know, that percent. On this one, I'm going to change it that percent. On this one, I'm going to change it that percent. This one, I'm going to change it. I already lost track of where I am. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and maybe here I'll change it to 0. So we have a transition there. As you guys know, PowerPoint can be kind of annoying sometimes. So let's export this as a video. Here we can tell it how many seconds we want to spend on each slide. I don't remember how many slides we have, but 6 or something. So I don't know. That sounds like it would be good. 0.5 seconds. Here it's giving me resolution. Let's just do the HD. We don't need to do anything crazy. It's going to ask us where we want it to save. All right. I think that's done. Now let's see what it looks like. So we just did the same thing we've been doing, but we did it super fast. But you saw how it was kind of choppy. You don't have to use this transparency buttons. You can set it yourself, so you can add more. It could be, I don't know, you could add 100 slides, and each one changes by, each one changes by 1%, or every 2%, or however, and you would get a smooth transition. We just had 1, 2, 3, 4 transitions before we got to 5, so it looked kind of choppy. But that's one way that you could do it. Another thing you could do is, maybe create your JPEGs or your images here. And if I open Premiere, project. Okay, I think there is just going to be a test. But you may be able to create all your files, different exports and different softwares, and then import them all into Premiere. So I'll bring this one here. There's that one. After Effects, use this one. This one I'd have to scale down because it's really too big. Really long. Maybe I'll cut this one down a little bit. Maybe I'll bring another one. It's a Photoshop. So I can easily combine them here and export these, and let's see what we get. Just as a way of putting everything together. Again, I'm going to go to H.264. I'm going to put this somewhere. I'll say animation combined. Now, here it's telling me the estimated file size is 42 megabytes. It still doesn't seem that big. I mean, not that crazy. And here are all the animations we created today. Again, the timing of these things is crucial, and oftentimes, I think computers nowadays have a lot better, a lot faster, so you can preview them as you're developing it. But when I was in school, we would have to, put a composition together and then export it and view it to really catch the how the sequence would occur, because this would be too choppy. But my computer's working fine right now, and I'm able to see everything clearly. So that's it for that not tutorial, but I want to share with you a video of that is really useful and kind of inspirational. And I'll share this link with you. Let me do this again. So we can watch this briefly, and then we'll end the class with that. Look at this one. Yeah. So that It's just a beautiful video of sort of thinking outside of the box of how to present something. Your projects will be more planimetric and two-dimensional. I think I have one more video that I wanted to show you, just to show you that you know, your project can also just be, your animation can just be a series of still images that are tracking something. So the student basically took many still images of the way that the sun was moving, and these are just screenshots that he took from Revit using different tools, using the section box as he cut through the site. But these are still images. Nothing was animated or nothing was really moved in position in Adobe Premiere or opacity. This is just a series of still images that are one right after the other that are communicating something. I think that's the part that I wanted, yeah. Just to show you that it doesn't have to be something kind of that complicated. So that's all I have for today. Please review the brief. Let me know if you have any questions. If you haven't uploaded your images of your previous project, please do so. And for Friday, I would like to see storyboards and a video draft. You know, maybe whatever you can produce by Friday is good. The more advanced, the better, so we can have more things to talk about. And also, 1 to 2 minutes doesn't sound like a lot of time, but it's going to be a lot of time. Once you start editing, you're going to see that you're going to need a lot of information to fill that, to make it interesting and to have transitions and lines moving through your project. So if you want to come with, you know, something that's 4 or 5 minutes long on Friday, and we can start editing down before it's due, you know, before we see it again on Monday, that would be a good idea. Any questions from anyone? If not, that is it, and I will see you on Friday. Yes, I am going to upload this video and send it to you.